Sports Yak. One host knows sports.
And who's right there?
The other doesn't know sports, but somehow they meet in the middle. Corey Mann.
Get your big butt out of here!
And Indiana Sports Broadcast Hall of Famer,
This one will be relived
Chuck Freebie.
forever!
Do you like sports? 'Cause we like sports. Let's talk about sports. It's Sports Shack. Sports Shack. It's Sports Shack.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 36 of Disney Plus Reviews. I'm Phil Sousa, and I'm here with my good friend, Grant, Family Fake Out Youngsma. How's it going, Grant?
Wonderful. Because we're talking about one of my favorite all-time Disney Channel original movies.
Well, there's a lot of qualifications in that sentence. Have you seen a lot of Disney Channel originals?
Yeah? I've seen quite a few of the old school ones, not the new school.
Yeah. This is definitely a... I guess it's pretty old. I don't know. I'm not that familiar. I don't know that this. Grant, I'll be totally honest with you. This may be the first ever Disney Channel original that I've ever watched. Did you? Okay, so I'm guessing you grew up with the Disney Channel then.
Yeah.
What other Disney Channel originals have you seen?
The Halloween Town trilogy, or there might be 4 of them. I've only seen the 3 though.
Halloween. Okay.
Which we did that on HMP.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that.
Yep. And then there's Johnny Tsunami.
Okay.
Which is about a kid who loves surfing and then he moves to, I can't remember where he moves to, but then it's all snowboarding.
Okay.
And then there's Brink, which is a skateboarding movie.
I've not heard of most of these. Please continue.
There's Luck of the Irish. There's Cadet Kelly.
Oh my goodness.
Well, High School Musical 1 and 2.
Oh, okay, yeah. Those are, so those were original to Disney Channel, the first 2 movies. Mm-hmm. Okay, those are definitely their biggest ones.
Yeah, I would say so. And then, like now, there's like Descendants, but I haven't seen those.
Okay.
But I've seen my fair share of them.
Yeah, so you and I were born in very different decades.
Yes.
I essentially was born at the beginning of the 1980s. I was born in 1979, like the last few months of that year. So basically, I'm an 80s kid. I was in elementary school throughout the 80s, and then in junior high and high school in the 90s. We had Disney Channel growing up, but I don't remember. I'm sure there were some, but I don't remember a lot of Disney Channel originals in the 80s and 90s. I'm sure there was some like maybe on the back part of the 90s, but I was already in college by then.
Yeah, I think they started like 96, 97, something like that.
And I was getting too old for them at that point. Like I was already 96. I would have been a junior in high school. Mm-hmm. So, I think this whole era of like straight to TV, but for a particular channel kind of movies, like Disney Channel movies, is something that I for the most part missed out on. I haven't really watched most of these. So I honestly, and this will like maybe surprise some of our listeners, but I've not even seen the first 2 High School Musicals. I've only seen High School Musical 3, which came to theaters. That's the only reason I saw it. So I have no idea what even happens in the first 2 movies. So. But yeah, we're talking about the Even Stevens movie today, a 2003 Disney Channel original straight to TV movie. If you're just joining us for this podcast, we are an unofficial Disney Plus podcast reviewing the most popular stuff on Disney Plus and some movies you've never heard of, like the Even Stevens movie, which I'm glad that I have Grant around to introduce me to some of these gems that are on Disney Plus that I've not been aware of. So It is based on a television show. If you know nothing about Even Stevens, we're going to give you quite the education today. Even Stevens was, I had to look all this up, of course, but it was a television show that aired on the Disney Channel from 2000 to 2003, if that's right. And at the end of its 3 seasons that it had, they released this movie as kind of like the capper, like to end the series. It's, of course, based on that TV show with all the same actors, right? They didn't replace anyone for the movie.
Same actors.
So now, going into this movie, I had not watched a trailer or anything like that. I get to frame 1 of the movie and I was like, is that Shia LaBeouf? And I like, he's so remarkable in his visage, like the way that he looks is very unique, that I was like, that has to be Shia LaBeouf. But I still paused the movie so that I could go look up the cast list. I did not know that he was in this television show for 3 years. This is basically how he got his start.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah,
just a weird, funny kid.
Yeah, so I looked it up. He was 17 when he filmed the movie, which means he was only a 14-year-old kid when he was in the TV show. Now, I've not seen the movie, but have you heard about the movie Honey Boy? Came out last year, I want to say 2018, 2019. Honey Boy it is technically, I think, supposed to be a fictional story, but it's like semi-autobiographical. It stars Shia LaBeouf as an adult, but they cast a child actor for this movie to play him as a kid. So like Honey Boy, again, semi, is about his life. It's kind of an autobiographical film. And I don't know if he wrote it or assisted with the writing of it, but it is, believe it or not, it is about his years on Even Stevens. Okay. Yeah, Honey Boy is about the child. It's not about the show. It's about his life during those years. And I don't think they can actually mention the name Even Stevens. They probably renamed the show for the movie. Yeah. But everyone knows it's clear that it's talking about Even Stevens. So the character in the movie, I've not seen it. I've just seen trailers and stuff. The character in the movie takes like pies to the face, and it is clear that it's talking about Even Stevens. Okay. So anyways, something to maybe check out. I have not seen it, but I've heard really good things. Shia LaBeouf, Tim Meadows, who I actually know. I watched a lot of Tim Meadows, even actually in this era, because he was my guy. Like, he was one of my favorite actors on Saturday Night Live when I was watching SNL in the late 90s, early 2000s. Tim Meadows was kind of the hit thing, and he is kind of a main character in this movie. Christy Carlson Romano plays Ren. She's obviously from the TV show. And then a bunch of other actors that, unless you've seen the show, you probably don't know who they are, with the exception of Dave Coulier, who has a very brief cameo towards the end of the movie, obviously from Full House fame. We are going to spoil the entire movie, so you've been warned. I seriously doubt that you care about being spoiled on this movie. If you haven't seen it by now, you're probably not going to, but we thought we'd just kind of entertain you talking about this movie.
Celebrating its 17th anniversary.
And in 20 years, like I saw on YouTube or whatever a few months ago that maybe even last month they celebrated the 20-year anniversary of the first episode of the show, which came out in 2000. So it is definitely anniversary time. So if you've already watched the movie, obviously continue with us, or if you just don't care about spoilers, we're going to get into it. So before we go, there's certain scenes I want to talk about, but before we get to those, I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on the show first. Like, what do you remember from the TV show? What was it like? I literally have not even seen a single episode of the TV show. And then, like, how does it convert into the movie? What are some of your favorite scenes from the movie? I'm just going to give you the floor for a little bit.
Well, this show, when it came out, I was 9 years old. So I had watched a lot of Boy Meets World, Family Matters, stuff like that. So this one is kind of along the same lines of that. So it kind of intrigued me. One episode that really sticks out to me is Lewis has this big scheme where, of course, everything in his life is made out to make his sister mad. So there's this one episode where his sister's having this like huge sleepover, and Lewis has been banned from even stepping foot in the house. So he's been like banned to the basement. So he's like, because Lewis, you've also seen it in the movie. He's kind of an entrepreneur where he's got these ideas going. So he decides to, before pay-per-view was even a thing, he decides to make this pay-per-view called The Secret World of Girls. And he literally puts like a camcorder in, and he invites a bunch of the guys, and he's charging to get into his basement. And he literally has cameras set up around the house, and they just watch the girls sleep over the whole night. And then they of course catch him, and he gets in big trouble. But that's kind of how the show goes, is Lewis does something to make Ren mad, and that's kind of how this movie goes too.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty good show. I mean, only 3 seasons, but it's worth watching, I would say.
So it's fair to say that Lewis and Ren are the main characters of the show, right?
Yes.
There are like some high school, or I guess junior high. These are young kids.
Yep.
Junior high friends that I forget their names. They both start with
Twitty and Tawny.
Twitty and Tawny.
Yep.
That are in this movie that I guess are side characters in the show.
They play pretty big roles. I mean, Twitty is always there by Lewis's side. Beans, he takes on a small role. He's kind of the annoying little neighbor kid that nobody wants around. So
he strikes me. You mentioned Family Matters. He strikes me as maybe the Urkel of the show.
Yeah, kind of. The kid that they don't really want around, but he doesn't really have a family. Kind of.
Yeah. Very similar to Urkel.
Because you never meet his family.
Yeah.
And this kid's just showing up at their house.
You don't even meet his family in this movie.
Yeah.
His family is mentioned. You know that he has a mom and dad, but you never even see them.
But they're on a trip for the whole summer.
Yeah. It's very convenient. Okay. Well, yeah, that kind of actually, I kind of wish I'd known that going into this movie. Like, I think that kind of framed, I caught on by the end of the movie, like, okay, I kind of get the shtick of this family story, that it's kind of, Lewis is the ne'er-do-well that literally just lives to make everyone miserable. And then, Ren is kind of the goody two-shoes, perfect daughter. Like, she doesn't ever do anything wrong. So yeah, it's that family dynamic definitely comes through on the movie, but I wasn't familiar with the show at all. So, but by the way, speaking of Ren, so Renee, I guess is her full name, but they call her Ren. She was 19 when she filmed this movie. She's literally playing a junior high graduate.
Yeah,
like, she's not even in high school yet, and she was 19 when she made it. So I think that's just that. I mean, there's a reason probably that they had to kill it after just a few seasons. They either would have had to recast these characters as, with different actors. I mean, at some point, Christy Carlson Romano is going to be in her 20s, and she's still playing a junior high kid. So they had to cap it off at some point. But yeah, by the time they made this movie, you could definitely tell, like, she's 5'7", like she's taller than her mom in this movie, and playing an 8th grader. So like, there's definitely like kind of like, okay, this is gonna be our last hurrah with this whole story.
And it's like Caitlin and I, before we decided to do this one, had talked about it, and Caitlin saw Christy Carlson Romano as Belle on Broadway.
Oh yeah.
And she said that when she was Belle on Broadway, she was 20 years old. So that means she
right after this.
Right after.
Yeah. So that would have been 2004 then. I enjoyed her. Like, I don't know that I had seen her in anything else.
Yeah.
She's done, I looked up her filmography. She's done other movies, but I don't think I've seen her in a single other movie. Honestly, I was pretty captivated with her. I thought she plays a very convincing goody two shoes kid.
Definitely.
Like she nails that character. I did go back and watch, like, on YouTube, just a few clips of the show, just so I could kind of know something about the source material. And I found an episode there. I guess there's one episode, season 2 maybe, where the entire episode is all music. It's a musical episode. Kind of reminds me, if you've ever seen Community, they occasionally do like a musical. And it was something about like some some illness or epidemic is going through the school or something like that. And I was just like, wow, that's very timely for what we're going through in 2020. But she's obviously got a good singing voice. She's done some other singing roles, I think, in some of her other shows that she's been in. Have you seen her in anything else?
She was in another Disney Channel original movie called Cadet Kelly, which she was in that with Hilary Duff.
Okay.
And it's about these kids going to like boot camp.
Oh, wow. Very different from this. I think the only other thing that she's really widely known for, like when she goes to Comic Cons and stuff, the things people mention are obviously Even Stevens, and then I should have wrote it down. There's an animated series that she was in.
Kim Possible.
Kim Possible.
Yep, I forgot about that too.
Yeah, that's probably her. Other than like maybe her Broadway stuff, which I think probably tens of thousands of people have seen her on Broadway, because she's kind of made a name for herself in Broadway recently. I would say it's probably those two: is Kim Possible and Even Stevens. So okay, well, favorite scenes. You want to start out with spaghetti?
Yeah. So pretty close to the beginning of the movie.
It's the very first scene.
They start out at their junior high graduation, and Lewis is nowhere to be found, and everybody's just like, where's Lewis? And of course, he's got this whole plan, but actually, he is trying to do something nice for Ren, where he has this huge like remote control beach ball, which I have no idea where you find one of those, but
or how that would even work.
Yeah,
technically, but go on.
But it's pretty genius, and he has his little sidekick Beans with him, and Beans was supposed to fill the balloon with confetti, and of course Ren is the valedictorian, so of middle school. But,
it is junior high graduation.
Yeah. So she's giving her speech and everything, and then this beach ball just starts flying around, and they even like send out the PE teacher to try and catch it, but he can't catch it. And then there's a scene where Lewis was like, so you filled it with confetti, right? And Beans is like, confetti? And then he said, I thought you said, and then all of a sudden it's right above Ren, and down falls this whole thing of spaghetti.
Sauce and all. It's juicy.
And she's just covered in it. And Lewis is just like, at first he's like, and then he's really proud of Beans for this moment.
I wrote down the line. He says, Beans, your lack of listening skills has finally paid off. You're right. He's trying to do something nice for Ren, but he's like elated when it doesn't work out that way.
And of course, everybody knows who is responsible for this.
Yep.
And
Ren is like looking for Lewis.
Yeah. But that's one of the good scenes to start out with. And then I feel like another scene that kind of sets the foundation of what this movie is going to be is when Ren goes to the diner to have breakfast with her boyfriend at the time.
Which, is he a regular on the show?
No.
I didn't get that sense. So.
No.
Okay.
And so he is going away to some camp, and so they're basically breaking up, and then she's trying to pour like maple syrup on him.
Yeah.
And so
he said, I'm trying to read you. Like, are you upset? And she goes, you dumped me in a pancake house and you wonder if I'm upset?
And then she takes the maple syrup, and it's like one of those triggered ones, and she's trying to dump it on him, but it's not working. And so that kind of sets a foundation of where this movie is headed, because Ren has had her heart broken, and now she's single.
Yep. And you also get the sense this movie is going to be about antics. Like, it's going to be about visual comedy, things that, let's be honest, frankly, appeal to kids. This isn't a movie really for adults at all. So it is, if you've seen like, Spy Kids or, anything that's, has a humor that's pretty low grade, there are some intelligent laughs, I think, in this movie here and there, but for the most part, it's a lot of visual comedy and just, like burns and stuff that kids would find funny. And
then kind of like setting up where they go on vacation, Lewis has created this another invention of his where it's basically an easy chair.
Dude, that chair.
It serves him hot dogs. He can watch TV. It even has like a mosquito net. And at some point, doesn't it serve him ice cream as well?
Yes.
And so Lewis has this plan of all summer, he's just going to lounge out on this chair. And he even has, him and Tawny are pretty much girlfriend and boyfriend.
Okay.
And he even has a seat for her. And she's just disgusted that he would even think that she would want to just sit there with him all summer. And so then Ren is just so mad at this point at him. And she literally like starts attacking him. But then the chair like starts malfunctioning and just starts attacking them. And then we meet Miles McDermot, which the chair basically like takes him out too.
Yeah.
And
the chair's like alive. It's like chasing them and stuff.
So then we get to Miles's presentation.
And by the way, the chair totally wrecks Ren because like it grabs her and she's like locked in, strapped down to the chair, and it starts pouring like ice cream, like condiments and stuff all over her, and she's like completely like just covered in chocolate syrup by the end of it. So, yeah.
Oh, and I guess we forgot that Ren has taken up babysitting, and she's agreed to babysit Beans for the whole summer.
Yeah, which I wouldn't say the show is a prerequisite for watching this movie. I did not see a single episode of the show, and I still watched it and still, for the most part, enjoyed it. There were parts of it that I thought were pretty lame. But, I think I would have enjoyed it more had I seen the show. I knowing these characters, I would have been ready for some laughs that I wasn't prepared for, having not watched the show. And there were entire characters that are not well explained in the movie because they just assume that you've seen at least a few episodes. So like when Beans first comes on the scene, you can tell like everyone is going to laugh at this character, but I didn't know why yet. Like I didn't know who is this kid? Like is this Beans Stevens? Like he's part of the Stevens family? Oh, he's not part of the Stevens family? Like I had to kind of figure his character out. So I mean, definitely, I think if you're a fan of the show, you're going to want to watch this movie. If you've not seen the show, you probably don't have a lot of interest in it, and there's probably some characters that are going to kind of, be beyond your comprehension at first. So
yeah, and he shows up with his huge bag of bacon.
Dude, that was so great. There's so much bacon in there.
Don't worry, I brought my own bacon.
Is bacon a thing in the show? Like, is he always eating bacon or something?
I think he does eat bacon.
There's like 150 pieces of bacon in that thing. So yeah, he's obviously, as Grant already said, he's kind of the kid that nobody wants around, but just refuses to go away. And the big premise at the beginning of this movie is that his parents, I guess, have gone on vacation without him, which is really funny, and have basically foisted him upon the Stevens family. They're kind of forced to watch him for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then we learned about Mandelino, which at first I thought Mandelino was supposed to be like a real place because I didn't know the premise of the movie at all. We're going to spoil it anyway. So Mandelino's not real. None of this is about to be real, the stuff we're about to explain. But like when Tim Meadows pulls up, and I was like, I'm immediately invested because I love Tim Meadows. Mm-hmm. And he starts giving this presentation. Like he pulls the projector out and he's like, let me tell you guys about Mandelino. It's the best. It's going to be the best vacation resort ever. And he's giving this presentation. I'm like, Mandelino, what is this? Like, I'd never heard of this place, but I thought they're just making up a country or whatever. But even the characters aren't. They're like, what's Mandelino? I've never heard of this. So, but yeah, what's the big deal about Mandelino? Like, what's the promise?
It's pretty much like a tropical island or a tropical paradise where you can just go and have a great vacation, super relaxing, and it's beautiful. The natives are great, and nobody's ever heard of it because it's only populated by the natives. Yeah. So the Stevens family at first is just like, oh my gosh, some of them are like, this is amazing. And some of them are like, we shouldn't go. And so they've basically been offered this free vacation to Mandelino.
Yeah. And the premise is like, we're going to build a resort at on this island that no one's ever been to. And you're going to be like one of the first ones there. Mm-hmm. And if you'll just write some reviews and allow us to quote you in our brochures and stuff like that, we'll give you the whole trip for free. Like we're basically piloting this place on you. So they say, I mean, even Ren is like, why aren't we signing? Like we need to do this right now. So they hop in a helicopter and get over there. And dude, the locals, I immediately started laughing when they get off that plane because they're like chanting them. They're literally chanting, "Welcome Stevens family, welcome Stevens family," like over and over again. Tuca, the chief elder, comes out in person. He's like welcoming them, and like girls are dancing. The steel drums are playing. It's like this, like it reminds you of like if you've ever been a part of like. I mean, it reminded me of like a Disney ride, like a Disney World ride or something like that. But these aren't animatronics; these are real people that are like putting on this show for the Stevens family. It's
basically like a luau type scene.
Yeah, but just for them.
Yeah.
So immediately I'm just like, is this a resort? Like, do they do this for every? So, and it was at this moment that I realized, like, okay, no one's ever been here before. Like, this the Stevens family are literally the pilot people.
Yeah.
And. Yeah, they're making a big to-do for them, but this probably isn't something that they're going to do for every family that comes to this resort. Then there's this weird scene where it's obviously followed up on later, but Donnie, which I had trouble remembering their names. At first, they were referencing some of the family members. I was like, who's Donnie again? But anyway, Donnie thinks that he sees a classmate on the island. And it's this weird scene where, like, it's the first time that... I mean, everything seems a little too convenient. Like, okay, this island no one's ever heard of. You get this massive, like, tribal welcome when you arrive. Yeah. Everything seems a little too perfect. And then Donnie is just, like, walking out, or, like, he's walking from A to B.
Yeah, he's on, like, a run or something like
right.
that.
Yeah,
because he's trying to stay in shape. And then he's like, you look like a person I went to high school with. And he's like, I'm Mootai. And he's just like, no,
it's Laylo. Mootai is the love interest.
Oh yeah, he's the love interest. And he's like, no, I'm Laylo. And they're just like, and then
he's like, no, you're Patrick Green. I went to school with you.
And then there's a scene later where
okay, let's explain this.
Oh yeah,
people, even his own family members. This is just par for the course for Donnie, right? Like he's kind of an idiot.
Yeah, he's kind of the dumb one where they're just like, he's more the jock than the brains.
Yeah.
Where they're just like, oh, okay, Donnie. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, if there's a word for non-valedictorian, he's like the opposite of Ren in every way. So anyways, sorry I cut you off, but so he thinks he sees this kid that he knows, and they were like 3 years apart in high school. So like, this Patrick Green, as we find out later, like didn't even like, he knew that Donnie was going to be on the island, part of this family, and he's obviously part of this show that's going on in the background. But he, like he says, like, hey, we were 3 years apart. I didn't even think he would recognize me. So but yeah, he plays it off and says, no, I'm Laylo.
And they literally have him come back later where they really want to mess with Donnie. And he comes back wearing like the Letterman jacket from their high school.
I did laugh at that.
And then he's telling Donnie that he's late for class, and he's just like,
they're just totally messing with Donnie at that point. Yeah, I love that.
But one of the key moments, I would say, in the beginning when they get to the island is Lewis. They throw this huge feast for them, and it's weird food. And Miles is telling them, well, if you don't eat this, it'll be super disrespectful. And it's basically like slugs on a stick. And the only person that really is enjoying it is Beans, because he will eat anything.
Yeah, he's like, you gonna finish that?
And so Lewis, which the show has done extensive background on the Stevens family, and Miles mentions to Lewis that in the palace, where they were originally supposed to stay in the palace, that the tribal leader has this box or this pantry of a bunch of goods, snacks, and everything.
Right.
So Lewis is just like, oh, I gotta go to the bathroom. And he just gets out there. And what the show knows about him is that he loves snacks, and he loves a comfy chair. So inside of this throne room, he's already got his snacks. There's a super comfy chair. And so Lewis sits down in it, and there's basically like a lever type thing where you assume that's just going to pull out like a recliner, make it a recliner or something.
Yeah, he says like footrest. Oh, very classy or whatever.
Yeah. And then it literally dismantles the whole palace.
I did not see that coming at all. That was one of the biggest surprises I thought in the movie. That and the ending. There's like this twist ending at the end. But like when the whole thing goes tumbling down, I was like, surely just like a few walls are going to tumble down. No, the entire palace crumbles to the ground,
except for Lewis and his chair.
And he's still holding his bag of snacks. He goes, corn snacky.
And the people,
fortunately nobody was in the building.
Yeah, the people of the island are just distraught. They are beyond mad. This kid has come to their island and he's destroyed their palace. So then Miles tells them, you guys are gonna have to sleep outside and fend for yourself now, because the tribal people are really upset.
They're very religious. They think that the land is literally cursed at this point, because the temple is like their holy place or whatever. So so at this point they're essentially roughing it. They're looking for firewood. They're looking for food. It almost becomes Survivor, like the TV show Survivor. And that's not a coincidence. I mentioned that this is we find out very soon after this that this is a reality TV show that they've been punked, for lack of a better term.
It kind of turns into Survivor because it turns into two teams, basically.
Yeah.
On one side,
knowing that this came out in 2003 makes a lot of sense, because this is at like the height of like reality TV is becoming a thing.
So you have the team of Mr. Stevens, Ren, and Beans, and then you have Mrs. Stevens, Lewis, and Donnie. And you basically have these two sets of teams where now Miles is really going to play off of them by doing stuff that is really going to upset him.
Yeah.
Because you go to find out that Mr. Stevens lost his job and really isn't providing. So Mrs. Stevens is kind of the breadwinner. So they play off of that. And then Ren and Lewis can't stand each other.
Right.
And then everybody thinks Donnie is dumb, so they don't really take anything serious with him, and then they can't stand Beans.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't think about that, but like there's kind of an alternate component. Like everyone has their opposite on these teams. So and Beans and Donnie are kind of the same person, but yeah.
So it's just humorous how they just go on. Like
I did really enjoy the premise of this movie. I did not expect to like very much about it. Once it started, I was just like, oh no. Like from the first time that someone made like a silly joke and like winked at the camera, and then like the horns come in and like wah 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 wah, I was just like, uh-oh, like I don't know if I'm gonna enjoy this. But once I figured out what was going on the islands, which they reveal about 30 minutes in, I was like, you know what? I kind of like this. Like, it is reality TV show, but like on an island. It's Survivor, basically.
Yeah.
But what if the people on Survivor don't know they're on Survivor? And that was like, I was like, wow, that is cool. Like, I've not seen this done before. So the closest thing I could think of would be the Truman Show. Have you ever seen the Truman Show with Jim Carrey? There are definitely elements. This came out 5 years after the Truman Show. There are definitely elements of borrowing, for lack of a nicer term, like they are clearly inspired by the Truman Show in a lot of ways. Like they're creating weather at one point. Like I don't even know how they're doing some of the stuff that they're doing, but it is basically a mix between the Truman Show and Survivor.
Yeah.
So,
and then it flashes, or it goes back to their hometown, and literally everybody is loving this show because some people don't like Ren, some people don't like Lewis, and they just think that they're just getting what they deserve.
The town is captivated by the show.
Literally in the diner that Ren breaks up with Gillen, there's a bunch of people just packing this place out and watching this show.
Yeah, in the Roller Cakes restaurant.
And so then Twitty realizes, well, Twitty's the one that signed the Stevens family up for this show, and he's starting to feel bad about it because because he's seeing his best friend and his family just get like torn apart, and it's not going as good of plan as he thinks. So he is just like, man, I wish there was a way we could help him or something. And then the PE teacher's just like, well, Mandelino's only actually about an hour and a half away. And then you finally realize that the Stevens family really isn't that far.
They've just been right off the coast of California, basically.
And it was a super long plane ride, but then you go to figure out that they just kept circling.
Which, how did they not know that? But I mean, that's part of the humor of the movie.
Yeah.
They call the island Catalona, which is very similar to Catalina, which is off the coast of Los Angeles. So you kind of get the sense that it's like a Catalina Islands, like very small islands.
Yeah.
But Catalona, they're renaming it. So they're not really in any danger. They're not that far away from the mainland. And yet they feel like they're like almost, the characters feel like they're going to die. Like we're going to die out here. So. And this whole show is called Family Fake Out, which we mentioned that at the top of our show here. But the tagline of which is Tim Meadows, Miles McDermot looks at the camera and says, "Isn't life funny when it isn't happening to you?" He just kind of chuckles.
And that's literally why all these people are showing up in this place to watch it, because nothing's happening to them and they know the people on it. So it's great TV for them.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if I ever had a friend that went on like The Amazing Race or something, I would watch every episode of it and laugh.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Especially if they don't know that they're on it. I mean, I think that's really kind of the cool premise of this movie. My two favorite characters in the movie, we'll go on with the plot here in a second, but like my two favorite characters in the movie are Miles McDermott. I think he's kind of special in this movie, honestly. 'Cause he's both, like, when you first meet him, you're like, this is the nicest guy I've ever met. And then like the cameras stop rolling and you see how he is like with his employees and stuff like that. And he's like firing people left and right. He's a jerk. And you find out that he's like ultimately like the bad guy of the movie, but you totally love him when you first meet him. So I thought I liked his character progression. And then, the easy choice after that is Lewis. He's just, say what you want about Shia LaBeouf. He went on to star in Transformers movies and people started hating him, but he's genuinely got great comedic timing. He reminds me a lot of Boy Meets World, like that kind of humor. And he is legitimately, the camera loves him. Shia LaBeouf's never had a formal acting lesson, by the way. Like he's just a natural. That's
impressive.
He's a natural actor.
Yeah.
That shines in this movie. Like, the movie's not a great movie. You could tell they made this movie for like maybe $750,000. Like, it's a cheaply made movie. Yeah, I don't know, maybe it cost $2 or $3 million. And so they didn't make it for very much. But Shia LaBeouf, pre super celebrity, which he is now, was just as good then. Like, he was kind of the shining star, I think, in this.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And like having a background in the show, I would say I enjoy Beans as well as a character.
He's not in this movie very much.
Yeah, not really. But so I think he's a good one that brings nice comedic relief.
That said, all the scenes that he's in, if he opens his mouth, it's going to be funny.
Yeah.
Like he is the character that is always funny all the time.
Yeah.
So
like, it's funny, like, there's one point when they're out on the beach and it's him, Mr. Stevens, and Ren. And Mr. Stevens literally has just started this fire, this very small fire.
Yeah.
And Beans sneezes and out goes the fire.
He like literally looks up to the heavens and screams, "I've made fire."
And so if Beans is in a scene, it's going to be a funny scene.
Yeah. Yeah, he was great. Let's talk about Mootai. We haven't really mentioned him yet. So right about the time where we stopped on the plot, there's this, obviously like hunk of a guy that's on the island. He's roughly the same age as Ren. Ren's coming off this big breakup and not sure where she is in the love world, so to speak. And in comes Mootai, and he's very friendly to her, and she's obviously clearly attracted to him. And they seem to have this instant connection. You think it's organic at first. Like this is just, two lovebirds that find each other. Then you find out that no, it's all scripted. Like he's been told this is your role in the show is to woo this girl or whatever.
And then their ratings start dipping. Well, below another show. So then Miles is just like, you need to get that kiss. So then his job now is to kiss Ren.
Yeah. I didn't love the scenes with Mootai and Ren. Yeah. I came to this table to laugh, and there's like these ultra sappy, like, I mean, call it Hallmark Channel or Disney Channel really type of scenes where like the electric piano and bass guitar start ramping up, boom, 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 and it's like this like super. I mean, it is for tween girls, like these scenes, and I'm not a tween girl. Yeah, and so like these scenes kind of wrap up, and the lines aren't particularly fascinating to listen to, and I was just like, okay, get back to Lewis and Beans, like get back to the action. So unfortunately, there aren't that many of those scenes. Like there's maybe a cumulative 5 minutes in the whole movie. So basically there's like these feast scenes, or there's one feast scene where one team goes and gets all this food. Meanwhile, the rest of the family is like starving on the beach. And of course they don't want to talk about it or admit them that they have this huge feast. At this scene, there's like a fire god statue, and Lewis, like they said, we invited you, Lewis, to this feast so that you can apologize to the fire god Oprah. and the mom's like, Oprah, and Miles McDermott 10 minutes goes, it's a coincidence. And he apologizes. He does this big formal I'm so sorry. I'll never destroy another temple ever again. Like he just goes through this whole kind of Lewis style apology. And then the fire god just spews fire out of his mouth, this mechanical fire god that they created. And they're like, oh, that's not good. You've been shunned. And so they, like, the entire tribe like literally turns their backs on him. This really funny scene. And they're like, yeah, you need to get out of here immediately and never show your face here again. Meanwhile, the other team is like
starving.
They're starving, and then they see. So then Miles says, "Oh, I called in like a package to be dropped in, like a food package to be
basically
dropped."
like Fortnite.
It is Fortnite. Yep. We're gonna drop this package. It's basically like if you've seen like a
supply package. Type thing.
They do this a lot, like for troops and stuff like that. Like we're gonna drop supplies. So they drop this thing by parachute, whatever. Of course, it very conveniently on purpose goes all the way up the top of the mountain, and they both have to go up there. And like when I'm thinking this, like obviously at this point we know what's really going on behind the scenes, but like when they do this, I'm just like, wait. The plane, there's not supposed to be another plane for a week. They're stuck on this island for 7 days, but the supply plane just was there. Like it just came and it didn't land to pick us up. Like I thought that was kind of silly, but
and he sends them on different trails and everything
to go get the food package,
where he literally like takes like articles of clothing from them, and like posts them, and then this is where it's kind of like the final straw. Because they assume that Lewis and the other team got there first, and they're ready for retribution because Lewis has messed up one too many times. Yeah. At this point, the family like is just kind of done with Lewis. Like they're like, okay, like you've burned us way too many times. And then also at this point, Twitty and Tawny decide that they are not going to fly. Not going to take a bus, but they are going to take this little boat that is captained by Tom, who's also friends with Lewis, but not really to the point of Twitty and Tawny.
Yeah, he was one character where he came on the scene and I was like, okay, I'm supposed to know who this guy is because I've seen the show before, but except I haven't seen it. And like I was totally confused by his character. I guess he's another friend of theirs.
He's another friend. He kind of wants to be Lewis's right-hand man. Okay. But they kind of like push him kind of off like Beans. Okay. But they only want him really for like his brains and stuff. Okay. But at this point, he's working basically in like a boatyard type of thing.
Very convenient.
And so the three of them literally set sail, and then there's this like crazy storm and everything.
Yeah, there's like this squall that comes up. It's like 30 feet of water, and it comes over the top of their little dinghy. They're not even in the ship anymore.
Yeah.
By the time they're in this little dinghy, and not Tawny, Twitty gets thrown out of the dinghy. And he goes, just go, I'll swim.
And this wave is just huge.
Yeah,
and you're just like, oh my goodness, what is going on? But then they finally make it to the island in hopes of saving the Stevens family.
And they're immediately apprehended. Like they're still on the sand on the beach when they get grabbed
by like basically like the security guards.
Yeah.
And they're basically going to hold them captive until they've finished with the Stevens family.
Yeah. Yeah, they're basically obviously there to warn them because I mean it's Twitty's fault that they're even on the islands because he's the one that told Family Fake Out like, hey, I've got a good candidate family for your show, and then obviously feels remorse over it and then wants to warn them. So they're there to warn them, but they immediately get apprehended. They take Twitty to like the backstage area where all their cameras and trailers and stuff are set up, and I love Tim Meadows' delivery is so good. He's so deadpan, but it's so funny to me. And he goes, he looks at Twitty and he goes, "Crate him," and then he's like, "What?" And like he thinks he's gonna go into like an animal crate, and they just throw him in a trailer.
Yeah, and then at one point they've escaped, and then they literally like unplug a bunch of their cords and stuff.
Right in the middle of the Ren Mootai, like when it's really heating up, he pulls all the cables out of the trailer.
And then, so back home, it flips to like this cooking show and everything. And there's like this older lady doing like an infomercial for cooking. And everybody's just like, what? And they're so disappointed because they really want Ren to kiss Mootai. But then they finally get back on.
So they weren't down for too long, but he cut the feed right in the middle of the show. Obviously, Miles is like irate at this point. Like he's, this guy's messing with his livelihood. Yeah. He's literally firing people left and right, for not watching the cables or not watching Twitty or whatever. At one point he goes, Someone tells Miles, the Twitty kid's gone. And he goes, I bet he had something to do with this. And I'm just like, you think?
and then he's literally like, he's commanding somebody to do something. And they're like, you fired us. And he's like, well, you're rehired now.
Then things, okay, so this is ramping up to the big twist at the end of the movie, which we won't spoil for right now. Well, if you've been with us this long and you haven't seen the movie, we'll have a little fun twist for you at the end. But then it goes into like full on like Predator mode, where this was like the one part of the movie that I thought was really, really funny. I was all in for this. It's basically Ren, who up until this point, I'm not familiar with Ren except for this movie, right?
Yeah.
But I know enough about Ren to know that this is the clean cut, perfect, goody two-shoes kid that everyone knows from school, right? Now she's in war paint. And she's like
savage mode.
She totally goes savage. All her hair is just completely disheveled. She grabs a spear, like she fashions a spear out of bamboo and whatever rocks she can find.
She's literally gonna kill Lewis.
And she's gonna kill him, like legit kill him. And honestly, like I was like, I kind of buy that. Like, I mean, if she went that long without food and, everything that had gone wrong, obviously, the Mootai thing is weird and she's very emotional. And like, I legit believe like, yeah, if she gets a hold of Lewis, she's legit going to kill him. So like it's it's like the movie Predator. Like she's basically like hunting him through the forest.
And then she finally finds him.
Yeah.
On this like cliff. So you really think it's going to be the end of Lewis.
And the whole family's watching. They're like, Ren, don't do it.
And they're trying to stop her and everything. And she's like, oh, he's done one too many. And then Miles shows up and he's just like, no,
Yeah.
you're actually on family fake out.
Yeah.
And he's trying to stop it because, I mean, obviously this is going to end his career if one of the family members kills another.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to stop her and everything. And then she basically, like, you think she shoves him off the cliff. Mm-hmm. And you're just like...
You actually watch him fall at one point.
And everybody's just like, oh my gosh.
She did it.
It's over. And then up pops...
This is how 3 seasons of the Even Stevens ends, is with Lewis's death.
And you're just like, this is going to end with Lewis dying. And this is the reason the show is ending.
Yeah.
Is Shia LaBeouf probably had some sort of accident where they had to cancel the rest of the show.
Or they pitched Transformers to him and he really had to go.
That could be too.
So, you think he's dead?
Yep.
But he's not, is he, Grant?
No, he is not.
He's alive. He jumped into a net, apparently.
Pretty much, yep.
From like, I don't know, like 12 stories, he, I guess, survives. And you find out that he's alive when this helicopter comes up over the edge of the top of the cliff, and he's hanging onto a ladder that's like hanging from the helicopter. So, and who's in the helicopter?
Dave Coulier.
None other than Uncle Jesse. No, not Uncle Jesse.
Uncle Joey.
Uncle Joey himself. And he is from the rival television show called Gotcha. And he basically uses this as like a stunt for his show. Like he was assisting them. I don't even know how they got a hold of him. Don't think too hard about this movie.
It would have had to be like Twitty and Tawny before.
Oh, I think you're right.
Before they got to the island.
I think you're right. They did say that before getting on a boat, why didn't they just take the chopper? Anyway, before getting on a boat to come over to the islands, they had tipped off Gotcha about what's going on with Family Fake Out. And so, so he's in to help them to pull off this big stunt so that he can get the TV ratings, and it works, obviously. So, and then there's this really touching scene. Again, I couldn't care less about these romantic scenes, but Mootai and Ren have this very quiet moment on the beach together at sunset, and he says, tell me if you've ever heard this in a movie before, but he says, I wasn't acting. I really care about you. I was just like, bleh.
And now it is Jason.
Now it's Jason, not Mootai. They all fly home on the plane, and when the family returns home, Beans pops up to disrupt their dinner. Again, Ren and Lewis argue about who let Beans in the house, and then it goes into this like music video at the end, which I can only assume was a part of the show. Did they end
they
episodes?
They had a band that appeared in a few shows. Okay. But yeah. So that's kind of where it comes from. You've seen this done in a dozen different kids movies where like it's fun to see the actors, break character and just be silly with the other actors on the set. Yeah. And it, it's cheesy. It's been done before, but it was also fun to watch. Like you can tell they're having a lot of fun on the set making the movie. Mm-hmm. So, the Twitty Stevens connection sings "Dream Vacation" at the end. So I would have liked some more Dave Coulier because I love that guy. Yeah. But he has a brief cameo at the beginning of the movie when they set up the TV show Gotcha, mm-hmm. and then of course he's got the big scene at the end. I think overall it is an enjoyable romp. Like I wouldn't say that this is my favorite movie of all time. I wouldn't even put it in my top 100 movies of all time. It's maybe wouldn't even crack my top 500, but it is funnier than I thought it was going to be. I thought you were getting me into something that was really terrible, like something that would be on the horrible movie podcast. I think someone could probably still bring this movie to the horrible movie podcast. Probably. But I laughed quite a bit. Again, the premise of the movie is actually really pretty genius. Like it's pretty original. I was surprised by how good it was.
there's some legit funny little scenes speckled throughout the movie that have absolutely nothing to do with the plot, but are just kind of just fun comic relief things. There's this scene where they're so hungry that they find a single peanut on the ground, and there's 3 of them, and they say, let's divide it into thirds, and we'll eat it. And there's like the nub on the end of the peanut. And they're like, we'll save that for dessert, and it has nothing to do with the movie at all.
Yeah. And then they get chased by the robotic squirrel at one point.
Killer Squirrel. Yeah, Killer Squirrel was pretty funny. There's lots of little, and then of course the stuff that we've already mentioned, like the spaghetti and the chair that wants to take over the house at the beginning of the movie, like that. Those kind of things are, again, pointless to the plot, but it's a kids movie, and kids want to laugh at silly things like that. So there's a part where Lewis is literally running from the chair, and he screams, "My life, my life!" So, I mean, you know what you're in for, I think, if you turn this movie on. It's worth mentioning. Maybe I should have mentioned this at the beginning of the show, but the movie on Disney Plus is still in 4:3. Like it's not a widescreen movie, and they've touched this movie up zero. Like it is in its original 2003 form, which if you've seen it before is great nostalgia. If you're in 2020 thinking like, why does the movie look like this? It's like, well, it's because they didn't update it at all. This is not a remastered version of this movie.
Not at all.
So, I really like Shia LaBeouf. I really like Tim Meadows. It is starkly similar to The Truman Show, but I think if you can just kind of put that aside and realize you've seen a movie that's much, much better than this movie that kind of does the same thing, there's a good time to be had. It is different enough from The Truman Show, and the fact that it's not about one dude, but like literally a whole family, and their fight to survive, but also kind of be at each other's throats the entire time. It's a good time. So. I'll be honest. It kind of made me want to watch a couple of episodes of the show, like just to check it out.
Yeah.
There's no way I would watch every episode of all 3 seasons, but I would check out like maybe that musical show and maybe the episode that you talked about. Just to kind of get some more context for the characters. But I will say this: if you are a Shia LaBeouf fan and haven't seen the show, but at least the movie, I recommend it. Like it is fun. I think it's always fun to see before they are who they are now. You go back and watch an old Sandra Bullock movie where she's like 21, and it's just like, wow, this is like Sandra Bullock before she was Sandra Bullock. And that is this movie for Shia LaBeouf. If you're a Shia LaBeouf fan, I think you'd have a lot of fun watching this.
Yeah. And I mean, even if you really enjoyed Kim Possible as a kid or even as an adult, but had never seen Even Stevens, I feel like that with Christy Carlson Romano. I know Kim Possible's animated, but I feel like that gives you enough there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, she's great. I feel like we didn't really talk about her very much, even though I kind of praised her at the beginning of the show. Like she's a great. I thought she was a phenomenal actress in this movie. Much better than she had any right to be in a movie like this. Like even the mom and dad, who are not in the movie very much, I don't think are acting very very well here. Like they're doing an okay job, passable. I think for the movie, there's no way that these actors would be like prominent Hollywood movie actors. The fact that Christy Carlson Romano has transcended and made it into the Hollywood world, and the fact that Shia LaBeouf has made it into the Hollywood world tells you a lot about their acting in this movie. I think that they got those bigger roles like Transformers and whatnot because of their work here. I think it's really well done.
Because I mean, the first Transformers came out relatively. 2006.
Yeah, it wasn't long at all after this.
So this definitely was kind of the platform for Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah. I had never seen him in anything. When I saw the first Transformers movie, he was a new actor for me. Yeah. I hadn't seen him in anything. So, but people that grew up on Disney Channel obviously knew him pretty well. So, yeah. I think overall it's a recommend, especially if you have kids to watch it with. The fact
definitely family friendly.
Oh yeah, the fact that I'm 40 years old and watch this by myself is a little weird, but I wanted to talk about it for the show just to have a little fun. So So this was a fun little episode 36. I enjoyed kind of taking a diversion from our usual fare, which is like Hamilton and really serious movies, and like just talk about this made for TV, you know, kind of popcorn movie, as it were. So thanks for joining me this week, Grant. If you have an idea for what you want us to talk about on the show, I think we've got Grant for most of the weeks in the summer, maybe not every week, but we'll probably have to say goodbye to him once school starts up. He's a teacher and also and coaches. So,
unfortunately.
So we got him maybe for another few episodes, but this was definitely a fun one. We'd love to include you in the show if you want to write us Disney Plus reviews at hotmail.com. And next week we are going to be talking about The Emperor's New Groove, which I'm super excited about. Easily one of my favorite Disney movies of all time. So cannot wait to talk about that. I've never done an episode on that movie, and on any podcast I've been on. I've been around podcasts for years and years. I've never talked about this movie, so really excited about talking about it with you. Again, let us know if you have an idea for a movie that you want us to see and talk about. We definitely have some ideas even beyond Emperor's New Groove, but we'd love to hear what you think. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week for some Emperor's New Groove.